St. Anthony Audio presents St. Anthony of the Desert from the Golden Legend, Lives of the Saints by Jacobus de Voragine. Anthony comes from Anna, above, and tenens, holding, and means he who holds higher things and despises the world. For he spurned this world, which is unclean, restless, passing, filled with deception, and very bitter. Of this, St. Augustine says, O unclean world, why dost thou rage? Why dost thou wish to mislead us? Thou holdest us while thou fleest. What wouldst thou do wert thou to remain constant? Whom dost thou not deceive with thy sweetness? And yet, within, thou art bitter, and thy sweetness is external. The life of St. Anthony of the Desert was written by St. Athanasius. Anthony was 20 years old when he heard these words of Jesus read in the church. If thou wilt be perfect, go, sell what thou hast, and give to the poor. At once Anthony sold all his goods, gave the profit to the poor, and went off to the desert to become a hermit. There he was forced to undergo innumerable temptations by the demons. One day, when by faith he had conquered the demon of impurity, the devil appeared to him in the form of a black child, and acknowledged his defeat. For St. Anthony had prayed to God that the demon of impurity, who persecutes youth, be shown to him. And when he saw him in the form of a black child, he said, I have seen thee in a shameful form. Never more shall I fear thee. Another time, when he was living in a tomb in Egypt, a swarm of demons maltreated him so dreadfully that one of his companions believed him dead, and bore him off on his shoulders. But when the brothers came together and began to mourn him, Anthony raised himself and asked the man who had borne him thither to bring him back to the spot where he had found him. And as he lay there, overcome by the pain of his wounds, the demons returned in the forms of diverse savage beasts, and began anew to tear at him with their teeth, their horns, and their claws. Then, all at once, a wondrous light filled the cave, and put the demons to flight, and Anthony was made whole at the same instant. Then, understanding that Jesus himself had come to his aid, the saint said to him, Where wert thou a while ago, good Jesus? Why didst thou not come to me then, to succor me and heal my wounds? And the Lord answered, Anthony, I was here, but I waited to see thee fight. And now that thou hast fought the good fight, I shall spread thy glory throughout the whole world. So great was the saint's fervor, that when the Emperor Maximian was putting the Christians to death, he used to follow the martyrs to their place of torture, in the hope of being slain with them, and he was sore afflicted to see that martyrdom was denied him. Coming into another part of the desert, he found there a large silver dish, and he said to himself, Whence comes this silver dish, in a place where there is no trace of men? If a traveler had lost it, he would have come back to seek it, and he would have surely found it as large as it is. Satan, this is another of thy tricks, but thou wilt not succeed in weakening my will. And the moment Anthony had said this, the dish vanished in smoke. Then he came upon a huge lump of gold, but he shunned it as if it were fire, and took refuge on a mountain where he remained for 20 years, working wondrous miracles. One day, being wrapped in spirit, he saw the world all covered with nets, tightly knotted together, and he cried, Oh, who shall be able to escape these nets? And a voice answered him, Humility. Another time, as the angels were carrying him from place to place in the air, the demons sought to hinder his passage by recalling to him the sins he had committed since his birth. But the angels said, In vain do ye speak of these sins, which the grace of Christ has already wiped out. But if ye know of any that Anthony has committed since he became a monk, say them. The devils were silent, and Anthony was freely carried into the air and brought back to the earth. St. Anthony tells us that one day he saw a certain demon who was very tall, and who had the effrontery to pretend to be divine providence. The demon said to him, What dost thou desire, Anthony, that I may give it to thee? But the saint, armed with his faith, spat in the devil's face, and threw himself violently upon him, whereupon the demon vanished. Another time the evil spirit appeared to him in a body so tall that his head seemed to touch the sky. Anthony asked him who he was. The evil spirit admitted that he was Satan and said,
"Why do the monks fight me, and why do the Christians curse me?"
Anthony answered, "They have reason to do so, since thou ceasest not to torment them." The devil said,
"It is not I who torment them, but they who torment themselves. For I am powerless, since the kingdom of Christ has spread out over the whole earth."
An archer once saw Anthony conversing pleasantly with his brothers, and this angered him. Then Anthony called to him and said, "Take your arrow and arch your bow." The archer did so, and Anthony bade him to do so a second and a third time. The archer said, "If I stretch my bow so much, it will break." "It is the same with the service of the Lord," said Anthony. "If we stretch ourselves beyond our measure, we too would soon be broken. Therefore, it is seemly that we lay aside our severity from time to time." Someone asked St. Anthony, "What must I do to please God?" The saint replied, "Wherever thou goest, have God ever before thine eyes. Whatever thou dost, obey the commandments of the Holy Writ. And wherever thou may chance to be, stay there. Do these 3 things, and thou shalt be saved." An abbot also asked Anthony what he should do, and Anthony responded, "Trust not to thine own righteousness. Restrain thy belly and thy tongue, and when a thing is past, do not sigh after it." And he said again, "Just as fish die when they are thrown upon dry land, so monks who tarry outside their cells and mingle in the affairs of the world weaken in their good resolutions. He who lives in solitude is free of 3 sorts of war, against hearing and seeing and speaking, and he has only to struggle against his heart." Several of the brothers, in company with an old man, went to visit St. Anthony. When St. Anthony saw them, he said, "You have a good companion in this old man." And he said to the man, "Father, you have brought good brothers with you." The aged man answered, "They are good, but their house has no door, and whoever pleases can go into the stable and untie the donkey." This he said because whatever was in their hearts soon came out upon their lips. St. Anthony used to say that the disturbances of the flesh might be of 3 kinds: those that came from nature itself, those that arose from excess of food and drink, and those that were caused by the suggestions of the devil. A brother of his hermitage had renounced the world, but not entirely, for he kept some of his goods about him. Anthony said to him, "Go and buy some meat." On his way back with the meat, dogs set upon him and sank their teeth into him. Then Anthony said to him, "In like manner do the demons tear apart those who renounce the world and wish to cling to their goods." One day, when he grew weary of being in his cell, he said, "Lord, I wish to be saved, but my thoughts will not allow me." Then he left his cell and saw a man whom he did not know. The man was seated and hard at work. Then he arose and prayed. But the unknown man was in reality an angel, and he said to Anthony, "Do likewise, and thou shalt be saved." Once, the brothers asked him about the fate of souls. On the following night, he heard a voice saying, "Arise, go out and look." He did so, and saw a horrible monster whose head touched the clouds. His arms were outstretched, and he hindered many who were trying to fly to heaven. But some soared on high, and he was unable to detain them. Anthony was filled with great joy and, at the same time, with great sadness, for he understood that these were the souls who were trying to mount toward heaven, and Satan was attempting to halt them. And the guilty he cast down, but he could not arrest the flight of the holy ones, and this caused him much torment. And one day, as Anthony was at work with his brethren, they heard him praying to God to ward off the evils which threatened the world. They asked him, therefore, what these evils were. And he, Anthony, weeping and sobbing, replied, "I have seen in the heavens the altar of God surrounded by horses, who trod the holies underfoot, and I have heard the voice of the Lord saying, my altar shall be defiled." And in fact, 2 years later, the Arian heretics broke the unity of the church, defiled the sacred things, and threw down the Christian altars. A man of authority in Egypt, named Balakias, had allied himself with the Arian sect and persecuted the Church of God. He had the monks and the nuns turned out naked and beaten with rods. Then St. Anthony wrote to him, "I see the wrath of God about to fall upon thee. If thou desirest to escape it, cease to persecute the Christians." The wretch read the letter, laughed at it, and threw it on the ground, beat the monks who had brought it, and ordered them to tell their master, Anthony, that he too would soon feel the severity of his chastisements. 5 days later, Balakias went to mount one of his horses, a beast of gentle demeanor. But the horse overthrew him, bit him, and trampled upon him, and he died 3 days thereafter. One day, the brethren asked of Anthony the secret of salvation. The saint replied, "Have ye not heard that Jesus said, 'If one strike thee on thy right cheek, turn to him also the other'?" They answered, "Yes, but that is beyond our strength." Anthony said, "Then at least suffer in patience when you are struck on one cheek." And they said, "That is still beyond our strength." And St. Anthony said, "Then be content not to strike back when thou hast been struck." But they replied, "Even that is above our strength." Whereupon St. Anthony turned to one of his followers and said to him, "Go and make ready a fortifying beverage for these brethren, for in truth they are exceedingly feeble. And as for you, prayer is the only thing that I can recommend to you." All this may be read in the lives of the fathers. At last, St. Anthony, come to the age of 105 years, fell asleep in peace, after having embraced his brethren. He died under the reign of Constantine, who mounted the throne in the year 340. We celebrate the feast of St. Anthony of the Desert every year on January 17th. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the legend that you just heard, please click the like button and subscribe, and be sure to turn on all notifications so you'll never miss out on another one of our uploads. Thank you again, and God bless.